sold my company for $43 million, hoping to celebrate with my son and his wife at the best restaurant in town. But as they danced, a security guard whispered, "Your son slipped something into your juice." My heart sank. Betrayal by my own flesh and blood. I got up and left. 20 minutes later, karma caught up with him. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. "Dad, you're destroying our future." Simon's voice cracked like a whip across my penthouse living room. I kept mixing his favorite Manhattan, the ice clinking against crystal in steady rhythm. Outside, Manhattan's lights sparkled through floor-to-ceiling windows, but the warmth inside had vanished. "Simon, I've made my decision. I'm selling HickTech in a month." The words hung in the air like smoke. I'd rehearsed them for weeks, yet saying them felt surreal. 42 years of building, creating, surviving, reduced to one simple sentence. My son stopped pacing, his face drained of color. "Dad, you can't do this. This is our family business." I handed him the Manhattan. His hand trembled slightly as he took it. "Family business." The words tasted bitter. "You don't even know how our software works." Ida looked up from her notepad. She'd been scribbling throughout our conversation, pretending to take supportive notes, but I caught something calculating in her green eyes. "Irving, maybe you should think this through." Her voice carried honeyed concern, but I heard the steel underneath. 3 years of watching her manipulate Simon had taught me to recognize her tactics. I placed my own glass down with deliberate finality. The sound echoed through the room. "I've been thinking about this for 3 years. The decision is final." Simon began gesticulating wildly, his arms cutting through the air like he was conducting an invisible orchestra of desperation. "But what about my position? What about our future? You're throwing away everything we've built." "Everything I've built?" I corrected. The distinction mattered. "You've been collecting paychecks." Ida's pen moved faster across her notepad. Whatever she was writing, it wasn't meeting minutes. Simon slammed his glass down. Amber liquid splashed onto my Persian rug. "This is insane. You're 65, not 90. You could run this company for another decade." "I could, but I won't." The certainty in my voice surprised even me. For months I'd wrestled with doubt. Tonight, those doubts had evaporated like morning mist. I want to travel, Simon. I want to see the pyramids, walk through Tokyo, sit on beaches in Thailand without checking emails every 5 minutes. Hire a CEO, then keep the company in the family. His desperation was palpable now. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the evening coolness, and leave you to interfere, to undermine decisions you don't understand. Ida stood gracefully, her notepad clutched against her chest like armor. "Irving, surely there's a compromise here. Simon has worked so hard." I almost laughed hard. Simon arrived at 10 Rao, left at 4, and spent most afternoons playing golf with clients who tolerated him only because of my reputation. "The decision is made, Etta. I'm meeting with Titus Grant tomorrow to finalize the sale." Simon's face went crimson. He looked like a child denied his favorite toy. "Grant, you're selling to Grant Tech. They're our biggest competitor. They're offering $43 million cash." The number hung in the air like a prayer. 43 million. Enough to live like a king for whatever years remained. Simon collapsed into the leather chair by the fireplace, his head in his hands. "You're ruining everything, Dad. Everything." But I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of responsibility, of constant worry, of managing Simon's incompetence, all of it lifting from my shoulders like chains finally unlocked. Ida moved behind Simon's chair, her hand resting on his shoulder, but her eyes remained fixed on me, calculating and cold. "When exactly is this sale happening?" she asked quietly. "Next month. The paperwork's already started." Her grip tightened on Simon's shoulder, and for a moment I thought I saw something dangerous flicker across her features. But it passed so quickly I might have imagined it. The evening stretched ahead of us, full of unspoken tensions and buried resentments. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside, the air felt heavy with endings. Simon lifted his head from his hands, and I saw a different look in his eyes, calculating, desperate, but focused now. "Okay, wait, let me think." He stood again, began walking in measured steps around my coffee table. "Maybe we could hire a manager, or make me a full partner." I remained seated, swirling the ice in my glass. The desperation was almost painful to watch. "Simon, you're not ready to manage even the sales department." The truth hit him like cold water. His jaw clenched, but he kept walking, kept thinking. "Then teach me. Give me 6 months. I'll prove myself." "You've had 12 years to prove yourself." Ida's pen moved across her notepad in swift strokes. Whatever plan was forming in her mind, she was documenting it carefully. Simon stopped walking and faced me directly. What if I bought you out myself gradually over time? With what money? Your salary. His face flushed red again, but he pressed on. I could get investors, bank loans. There has to be a way to keep this in the family. I set my glass down and leaned back in my chair. The leather was warm against my back, comfortable. I felt like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Simon, you owe $17,000 on credit cards. Your mortgage is underwater. What investor would trust you with $43 million? The silence that followed was deafening. Even Ada stopped writing. Simon's shoulders sagged. The fight went out of him like air from a punctured balloon. All right, Dad. His voice was quiet now, defeated. If this is your final decision, I respect it. The words sounded hollow. Rehearsed, but I wanted to believe them. That's right, son. It's time for everyone to go their own way. I stood and moved to the bar, pouring myself a scotch this time. The ice clinked softly as I added 2 cubes. You'll be fine, Simon. Both of you will. The sale includes severance packages for all employees. You'll have time to find something new. Ada closed her notepad with a soft snap. Of course, Irving, we understand completely. But something in her tone made me glance at her sharply. She was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. Simon moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. His reflection in the glass looked ghostly, insubstantial. $43 million, he said quietly. That's life-changing money. It is. I plan to change mine completely. Travel, you said. The pyramids, Tokyo. Among other places, I have a whole list. I'd actually started making that list 3 months ago. Countries I'd never seen, experiences I'd postponed for decades while building the company. Ida stood and smoothed her skirt. Well, this has been quite an evening, Simon. Darling, perhaps we should head home. Let your father rest. Simon nodded without turning from the window. Yeah, good idea. He walked over and shook my hand. His grip was firm, but his eyes remained distant. Congratulations, Dad. I hope you get everything you're looking for. The words should have made me happy. Instead, they felt like a goodbye that meant more than it should. Ida kissed my cheek, her lips cool against my skin. Take care of yourself, Irving. This is a big decision. The biggest of my life. They gathered their things quietly. Simon's coat, Ida's purse, her mysterious notepad tucked safely inside. At the door, Simon turned back one last time. I love you, Dad. You know that, right? I love you too, son. The words were true, which made everything harder. After they left, I stood in my empty living room, scotch in hand, watching the city breathe below me. Tomorrow I would meet with Titus Grant. Tomorrow I would begin the process of dismantling everything I'd built. Tonight, for the first time in months, I felt at peace. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed 9 times. The evening was still young, but I felt ready for whatever came next. Morning coffee steamed in my favorite mug as I sat in my home office, surrounded by 4 decades of memories. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warming the mahogany desk where I'd made countless decisions that shaped my life. The framed photograph caught my eye. Me in 1983, 23 years old, standing in front of a cramped Brooklyn garage with a crooked smile and unlimited dreams. 1983, a small garage in Brooklyn, $5,000 in savings, and a big dream. Who could have thought that in 40 years that dream would be worth $43 million? I picked up the frame, studying that young man's face. He looked so certain, so hungry. He had no idea what lay ahead. The failures, the breakthroughs, the sleepless nights, coding until his eyes burned. The first year had been brutal. 3 software projects that nobody wanted. Bank accounts dwindling. Ramen noodles for dinner most nights. Sarah, God rest her soul, working double shifts as a nurse to keep us afloat while I chased my impossible dream. But then came the breakthrough. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out another photograph. The first office we could afford to rent, a basement space in Queens with fluorescent lights that flickered and pipes that leaked when it rained. That's where we created Accounting Pro. Revolutionary might be too strong a word, but it changed everything for small businesses. Simple interface, powerful features, priced for companies that couldn't afford the big corporate solutions. The breakthrough came when Peterson Manufacturing called. Their old system had crashed, taking 3 months of financial records with it. They were desperate, willing to try anything. $50,000, that was our first major contract. I remember staring at the check for so long that Sarah had to take it from my hands and walk it to the bank herself. From that moment, everything accelerated. Word spread through business networks. Accounting Pro became the software small companies trusted. We added features, hired programmers, moved to better offices. By 1990, we had 20 employees. By 2000, over 100. The garage days felt like someone else's life. I sipped my coffee and looked at the wall where our first check hung in a frame. $500 from a restaurant owner in the Bronx who needed help tracking his inventory. $500 to $43 million. The American dream in numbers. But success came with costs. 70-hour work weeks, missing Simon's baseball games, falling asleep at my desk more nights than I cared to count. Sarah understanding, always understanding until the cancer took her 5 years ago. That's when the weight really settled on my shoulders. Building something for family only to realize family was slipping away while I wasn't looking. Simon never showed interest in the technical side. He wanted the benefits, the money, the status, the easy job without understanding the foundation everything rested on. Ida made it worse. I watched her calculate Simon's inheritance value on our wedding day, literally taking notes during the reception about company assets. I pulled out the latest financial reports. Hicks Solutions was solid, profitable, growing. We had clients in 37 states, software running in thousands of businesses. But I was tired. Bone deep, soul deep tired. The phone buzzed. Titus Grant's office confirming our meeting this afternoon. Mr. Hicks. Mr. Grant is looking forward to discussing the acquisition details. So am I. 43 million. Enough to travel the world twice over. Enough to finally live instead of just working. I stood and walked to the window. Central Park stretched out below, green and alive with spring. People jogged along paths, played with children, fed ducks in the pond. Life was happening down there. Real life. Not just conference rooms and profit margins. Simon would survive. He was smart enough despite his laziness. Ida would make sure he landed on his feet. She had too much invested in him to let him fail completely. The decision felt right in the morning light. Selling wasn't betrayal. It was liberation. I finished my coffee and began gathering the documents I'd need for the meeting. Contracts, financial statements, asset valuations, the paperwork of dreams becoming reality. In a few hours, I would sit across from Titus Grant and begin the final chapter of this story. The Hicks story would end, but Irving Hicks's story would continue. That young man in the Brooklyn garage would finally get to rest. The afternoon sun slanted through my office windows, casting golden rectangles across the financial reports spread on my desk. Numbers that once caused sleepless nights now looked like poetry. Profit margins, growth percentages, market expansion data. 40 years I built this empire. It's time to enjoy the fruits of my labor. Tokyo, Paris, Tuscany. So many places I never saw. I pulled out the world map hanging on my wall, running my finger along routes I dreamed about for decades. The cherry blossoms would be blooming in Tokyo this time of year. I could walk through Ueno Park, visit the ancient temples, taste real ramen from street vendors. My laptop displayed the final quarterly reports. Revenue up 18%. Client retention at 94%. Software downloads exceeding projections by 30%. HickTech had become exactly what I had envisioned in that Brooklyn garage, but the numbers felt distant now, like looking at someone else's achievements. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a leather-bound notebook. Travel planning, something I'd never had time for during the building years. Paris first, I muttered, making notes in careful handwriting. The Louvre, Notre Dame, those little cafes Sarah always wanted to visit. Sarah. She would have loved this moment, seeing me finally step away from the desk that had consumed so many years of our marriage. She understood the drive, the necessity of building something lasting. But she also knew when enough was enough. The Tuscany section of my travel guide lay open beside the notebook. Rolling hills, vineyards, stone cottages where time moved at wine speed instead of New York speed. I could rent a villa, learn Italian, write the memoir I'd always postponed. My phone buzzed. Titus Grant's assistant confirming our meeting for Wednesday. 2 days to finalize everything. I closed the laptop with decisive finality. The HickTech era was ending, but Irving Hicks's next chapter was beginning. Standing, I stretched muscles that had been hunched over desks for too many years. My body ached in ways that reminded me I wasn't 23 anymore, 65 years old with maybe 20 good years left. 20 years to actually live instead of just work. The photo on my bookshelf caught my attention. Our company's first office Christmas party in 1987. 12 employees, including Sarah, crowding around a plastic tree in our Queens basement office. Everyone looked so young, so hopeful. Now we had over 200 employees across 4 offices. The software we'd created ran accounting systems for thousands of businesses, Small restaurants, medical practices, construction companies, all depending on code I'd written in that cramped basement. But they'd survived the transition. Titus Grant understood technology, respected good people. The company would continue growing under Grant Tech's umbrella. I walked to the window overlooking Central Park. Joggers followed winding paths below. Couples sat on benches. Children played on playgrounds. Life happening at human speed. Tomorrow I would review the final contracts. Wednesday I would shake Titus's hand and sign papers that would change everything. Next week I would be free. The travel brochures scattered across my desk painted pictures of adventures I'd only imagined. Buddhist temples in Kyoto, wine tastings in Bordeaux, art galleries in Florence, museums in Prague, all within reach now. All possible because I'd built something worth selling. My notebook filled with itineraries, hotel options, flight schedules, 6 months of travel to start, maybe longer if the wander list took hold. For the first time in decades, I had no deadlines except the ones I chose. No employees depending on my decisions. No quarterly reports demanding attention. Just an old man with new dreams and enough money to chase them anywhere. The grandfather clock chimed 4 times. Wednesday couldn't come fast enough. The HICTech conference room felt different on Wednesday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table where I'd made countless decisions over the years. Titus Grant arrived precisely at 2 wungs, his handshake firm and confident. Everything about him projected competence. Silver hair perfectly styled, navy suit impeccably tailored, eyes that missed nothing. Irving, your company is exactly what Grant needs for expansion. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to making million-dollar decisions. I appreciated directness in business. I'm glad HICTech will be in reliable hands, Titus. We settled into leather chairs while my assistant brought coffee. The ritual of corporate negotiation performed countless times, but never for stakes this personal. Titus opened his briefcase and withdrew thick folders, contract drafts, financial, projections, transition timelines, documents that would transform my life's work into numbers on a balance sheet. Your software architecture is impressive. Clean code, scalable design, excellent documentation. He'd done his homework. I respected that. 40 years of refinement. We've learned from every mistake. It shows your client retention rates are exceptional. The conversation flowed naturally between professionals who understood each other's language. No manipulation, no posturing, just 2 businessmen reaching mutually beneficial terms. I presented the company portfolios I'd prepared, client testimonials, growth projections, technical specifications, everything organized with the precision that had built HICTE's reputation. Your team is talented, Titus observed, reviewing employee profiles. We'd like to retain most of them. They're good people. They deserve stability. $43 million is a fair price for such an asset. The number still sounded surreal. $43 million is more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. It's generous but fair. You're buying proven technology and established relationships. Titus smiled, the kind of expression that closed deals. Deal, official paperwork next week. We shook hands across the table. The gesture felt historic, like signing a peace treaty that ended a long war. My assistant appeared with champagne. Dumpy 2015 reserved for special occasions. The cork popped with celebratory authority. To new beginnings, Titus raised his glass. To successful partnerships, I replied. The champagne tasted like victory. Crisp, clean with hints of complexity that developed on the tongue, like a good business relationship. We spent another hour discussing transition details, employee contracts, client communications, technical documentation transfers, the logistics of dismantling 40 years of careful construction, but it felt right, natural, like watching a child leave home. Painful, but necessary. Your son will be taken care of during the transition. Titus's question was professional, not personal. Simon will receive the same severance package as other employees. It's time he made his own way. Fair enough. Independence builds character. The words carried wisdom earned through experience. Titus understood the balance between family loyalty and business necessity. By 4:00, we'd covered everything. Preliminary agreement signed, timeline established, expectations clarified. Next Wednesday would bring final signatures and wire transfers. Irving, it's been a pleasure. You've built something impressive here. Thank you. I'm confident you'll take it even further. After Titus left, I remained in the conference room, looking out at Manhattan's bustling streets. People hurried along sidewalks, chasing deadlines and dreams. Soon I would join them, not as a businessman, but as someone with time to notice the world beyond profit margins. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Simon. He probably wanted updates about the sale. For once, I had good news to share. The champagne had left me feeling generous, optimistic about family relationships that had been strained for too long. Maybe this new chapter would bring us closer together. The signed contracts lay spread across my penthouse coffee table like victory flags. Final sale documents, wire transfer confirmations, corporate dissolution papers, the complete dismantling of my life's work, now officially complete. I poured myself a celebratory scotch and reached for my phone. Time to share the news with family. Simon answered on the second ring. "Dad, how did the meeting go?" His voice carried unusual energy, almost excitement. "Simon, it's official. The company is sold. Let's celebrate tonight at Bella Vista." The words felt surreal leaving my mouth. 42 years reduced to past tense. "Congratulations, Dad. Ida will be thrilled." "What time?" Something in his tone made me smile. Perhaps he was finally accepting the transition. 8-9 terrace table with park view. "We'll be there. And Dad, I'm proud of you." The unexpected warmth in his voice touched something deep in my chest. When had he last said those words? "Thank you, son. That means everything." After hanging up, I called the concierge. "Josep, I need a reservation at Bella Vista for tonight." "Something special. Terrace seating, park view if possible. Congratulations on your business success, Mr. Hicks. I'll arrange the perfect table." Joseph had managed this building for 15 years. He knew when to ask questions and when to simply deliver results. The shower felt luxurious, hot water washing away years of corporate stress. I dressed carefully. Navy suit, silver tie, Italian leather shoes. Tonight called for formality. My reflection in the bedroom mirror showed a man transformed. Still, 65, still carrying the lines that came with decades of responsibility, but lighter somehow, unburdened. The scotch had left me philosophical. How many celebrations had I missed while building HickTech? Birthday dinners postponed for client emergencies, anniversary trips canceled for product launches, time traded for money, then money traded for more time. Sarah would have laughed at the irony. I selected a vintage watch from my collection, a PC Philippe I'd bought to celebrate our first $1 million year, but never worn. Tonight seemed appropriate for dormant luxuries. The evening stretched ahead with possibilities. Good food, fine wine, family conversation without the specter of business obligations casting shadows. Outside my windows, Central Park glowed with early evening light. Couples walked hand in hand along tree paths. Children played on playgrounds while parents watched from benches. Normal life, the kind I'd observed but rarely participated in. My phone buzzed with a text from Yeppe. Bella Vista table confirmed. Prime Terrace location 8 p.m. Champagne service arranged. Perfect. Simon and Ada deserved a proper celebration. Despite our recent tensions, they were family. The only family I had left. I straightened my tie and checked the time. 7:15. Enough time to walk through the park, arrive fashionably punctual. The contracts on my coffee table caught my eye one final time. Legal documents that severed 4 decades of connection. Tomorrow I would wake up as a retired man with no company to manage, no employees to consider, no quarterly projections demanding attention, just Irving Hicks, with more money than he could spend, and finally enough time to remember who he used to be before business consumed everything. The evening air would be crisp, perfect for a celebratory dinner. Fine Italian cuisine, excellent wine, family conversation about the future instead of corporate obligations. I grabbed my keys and headed for the elevator, feeling lighter than I had in years. Tonight we would toast new beginnings. The entrance to Bella Vista glowed with warm amber light as I approached through Central Park's evening shadows. Simon and Ada stood waiting beneath the restaurant's elegant awning, their figures backlit by Italian lanterns strung along the terrace. "Dad." Simon's embrace felt genuine, almost desperate. Ada kissed both my cheeks, her smile perfectly calibrated. "Irving, you look wonderful. Success suits you." The hostess led us through the main dining room to our reserved terrace table. Manhattan sparkled below us like scattered diamonds. Central Park stretching endlessly into darkness, to new life and new adventures. I raised my wine glass, feeling lighter than I had in decades. "To you, Dad, you deserve happiness." Simon's voice carried an edge. I attributed it to excitement. We clinked glasses beneath string lights that swayed gently in the evening breeze. The sound rang pure and celebratory. Ida ordered for the table: ossobuco, risotto, Caesar salads. Everything felt perfect, orchestrated, like a scene from a movie about successful families celebrating life's victories. "Irving, tell us about your travel plans." Ida leaned forward with apparent interest. "Japan first. I've always dreamed of seeing the cherry blossoms." The words painted pictures in my mind. Ancient temples framed by pink petals. Quiet gardens where time moved at nature's pace instead of business schedules. When Sarah was alive, we talked about Kyoto. Every spring, she collected photographs of the philosopher's path, the way light filtered through blooming branches. Simon fidgeted with his napkin, checking his watch repeatedly. "That sounds incredible, Dad. How long will you stay?" 6 weeks minimum, maybe longer if the wanderlust takes hold. A jazz quartet began playing near the bar, their music drifting across the terrace like smoke. Couples swayed together on the small dance floor, lost in each other's arms. Ida touched Simon's hand. "Darling, shall we dance? That song is lovely." Simon hesitated, glancing between her and me. "Go ahead," I encouraged. "I'll enjoy watching you two. It's been ages since I've seen you dance together." They rose from the table, moving toward the music with careful steps. Simon's hand trembled slightly as he placed it on Ida's waist. I settled back in my chair, sipping wine and watching them move in slow circles. The evening felt magical, suspended between past achievements and future possibilities. A man in a dark suit positioned himself near the terrace railing, his eyes scanning the restaurant with professional attention. Security, probably. High-end establishments always employed discreet protection. The music swelled, violins weaving through saxophone melodies that spoke of romance and new beginnings. Simon and Ida looked beautiful together, young and elegant against the city's glittering backdrop. This was what success meant. Not the bank accounts or business accolades, but moments like this. Family together, celebrating life's victories, surrounded by beauty and possibility. My orange juice sat half-finished beside the wine glass, ice cubes melting slowly in the warm evening air. The restaurant's atmosphere embraced us like a comfortable embrace. Soft lighting, gentle conversation, the subtle clink of silverware against china. Other diners talked quietly at surrounding tables, their voices blending into a sophisticated murmur that spoke of prosperity and contentment. Tomorrow I would begin planning the Japan trip in earnest. Travel guides, hotel reservations, cultural research, the kind of detailed preparation that had made Hicks Tech successful, would now serve leisure instead of business. Simon spun Ida slowly, her dress flowing around her legs like water. They looked happy, settled, ready to build their own lives without depending on my company for security. Perhaps this transition would bring us closer together. No more business tensions, no more concerns about inherited responsibilities. Just family, enjoying each other's company without the weight of corporate obligations. The security guard shifted his position, now facing our table more directly. His attention seemed focused, alert to something I couldn't identify. But nothing could dampen my mood tonight. 43,042 years of work, and finally the freedom to live instead of simply achieving. The jazz quartet's melody grew softer as Simon and Ida continued their slow dance, their movements hypnotic under the terrace lights. I watched them with paternal pride, remembering when Simon had been too shy to ask girls to dance at school events. A shadow fell across my table. "Excuse me for the interruption, sir. I'm Mike, security for this establishment." I looked up to find the man in the dark suit standing beside my chair. His expression was professional but troubled. "Yes. What's the matter? I saw that young man pour something into your juice when you were distracted." The words hit me like cold water. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. What? Are you certain? That's my son. Mike's face remained grave, his voice steady. Unfortunately, yes, please be careful. My eyes moved to the orange juice glass. Innocent-looking amber liquid with melting ice, the glass I'd been about to finish when Simon and Ida returned from dancing. The world tilted slightly. Sound became muffled, distant. You're absolutely sure? I watched him do it while you were watching the musicians. He added something from a small container. Simon, my son, the boy I'd taught to ride bicycles, helped with homework, supported through college. Sir, are you all right? Mike's voice seemed to come from far away. I looked toward the dance floor where Simon held Ida close, his back to our table. They moved together with practiced intimacy, unaware that their plan had been discovered. My own son had tried to poison me. The realization crashed over me in waves. All those forced smiles tonight. Ida's calculated conversation. Simon's nervous energy I'd attributed to excitement. They'd planned this probably for weeks. Sir, I forced myself to focus on Mike's concerned face. Thank you. What? What should I do? Don't drink anything from that glass. Do you want me to call the police? Police? My son arrested for attempted murder. Headlines in the business journals. Public humiliation for our entire family. No, not yet. I need to think. Mike nodded, understanding. I'll keep watching from over there. If you need anything, just signal. He retreated to his position by the railing, but I could feel his attention focused on our table. My mind raced through possibilities. Confrontation would mean public scene, police involvement, media attention. Everything I'd worked to build, destroyed by scandal, but doing nothing meant accepting that my son had attempted murder. The music stopped. Simon and Ida began walking back toward the table, their faces flushed from dancing. Time slowed. I had perhaps 30 seconds before they reached me. Think. Think like the businessman who built a $43 million company. Evidence. I needed evidence before making accusations that would destroy everything. My hand moved toward the orange juice glass, then stopped. Mike was right. I couldn't drink it, but I could preserve it. The small pill bottle in my jacket pocket, heart medication I'd carried for years, but rarely needed. I could transfer some of the juice, save proof of what Simon had done. My fingers worked quickly, unscrewing the tiny cap while keeping my eyes on the approaching couple. Did you enjoy the music? Ida called out as they drew closer. Beautiful, I managed, my voice surprisingly steady. 20 seconds. The pill bottle filled with orange juice. Evidence of my son's betrayal, preserved in pharmaceutical plastic. I capped it, slipped it back into my pocket. 15 seconds. What to do with the remaining juice? The decorative plant beside our table provided the answer. I poured the contents, casually, as if watering the greenery in a moment of absent-minded generosity. 10 seconds. Simon and Ida reached the table's edge. We should do this more often, Simon said, pulling out Ida's chair. His hands looked steady now. No tremor, no nervous energy. Whatever he'd put in my drink, he believed it was done. Simon slid into his chair, face glowing with apparent satisfaction from the dance. Ida arranged her dress carefully, both of them watching me with expectant smiles. My own son? How could I have been so blind? But now I know the truth. That was lovely, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. You two danced beautifully together. The orange juice glass sat empty before me, its contents now feeding the restaurant's decorative plant. In my jacket pocket, the pill bottle felt heavy with evidence. Where's your juice, Dad? Simon's question sounded casual, but I caught something else underneath. Anticipation, maybe. Finished it while watching you dance. Thirsty work? Celebrating. His smile faltered for just a moment, barely perceptible, but I saw it. Should we order dessert? Ida's voice carried forced brightness. I stood, reaching for my wallet. Actually, I think I'll call it an early evening. Long day, you know. The final paperwork was exhausting. Both their faces changed. Confusion, then something sharper. But Dad, we just got started. Rain check. I placed $300 on the table, more than enough to cover our meal and generous tip. Tonight was perfect. Thank you both. I kissed Ida's cheek, embraced Simon with arms that felt like they were moving through water. I love you both, I said, the words carrying weight they couldn't understand. Dad, wait. Simon started to rise. Stay, finish your wine, enjoy the music. I can find my own way home. I walked away from the table with measured steps, feeling their eyes on my back. The weight of $43 million meant nothing compared to the weight of my son's betrayal. Mike appeared beside me as I reached the restaurant's interior. Smart thinking with the plant, he said quietly. Evidence preserved, threat eliminated. Thank you. You saved my life tonight. Part of the job. Will you be all right getting home? I'll manage. The evening air felt different as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Cooler, sharper, like breathing in a new world where nothing was as it seemed. Behind me, through the restaurant's windows, I glimpsed Simon and Ida at our abandoned table. They were leaning toward each other. Intense conversation replacing the relaxed mood of minutes before, planning what to do next. Probably. How to explain their father's sudden departure to themselves and each other. I walked through Central Park, my footsteps echoing on empty paths. Joggers passed occasionally, their breathing visible in the cooling air. The pill bottle in my pocket contained more than orange juice. It held proof that the son I'd raised, educated, and supported had tried to murder me for money. $43 million worth killing for, apparently. But they'd failed. And now I knew exactly who they really were beneath the smiles and family embraces. The apartment buildings along Fifth Avenue rose like monuments to success and betrayal. Lights twinkled in thousand-a-month windows where families lived normal lives without attempted murder over dinner. My penthouse waited ahead, sanctuary and prison combined, safe from physical harm, but trapped with knowledge that would change everything forever. Tomorrow I would decide what to do with the evidence. Tonight, I would simply survive the shock of learning that blood relationships meant nothing when money was involved. The decorative plant would wilt within days, proving the juice had been poisoned. Mike would remember what he'd witnessed. The pill bottle would provide laboratory confirmation. Everything I needed to destroy the son who had tried to destroy me. But first, I had to figure out how a father becomes his child's enemy overnight. The answer, I suspected, was that he'd always been the enemy. Tonight had simply revealed what was already true. Manhattan's lights blurred past the taxi window as I sat in the back seat, the pill bottle heavy in my jacket pocket. The driver hummed along to jazz radio, oblivious to the fact that his passenger had just escaped murder. My phone buzzed. Simon's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Dad, where are you? We came back and you were gone. His voice carried concern, but something else lurked underneath. Anticipation, maybe. Hope. Sorry, Simon. I suddenly felt sick. Went home. Oh, a pause then. I hope it's nothing serious. The tone hit me like cold water. Joy. Barely concealed excitement masquerading as worry. My own son was hoping I would die. Don't worry, I'll be good as new tomorrow. Are you sure? Maybe you should see a doctor. You left so suddenly. He was fishing, trying to determine if the poison had worked. Each word dripped with false concern while his real emotions leaked through. Just tired, son. Long day with the final paperwork. Oh, right, the sale. Well, get some rest, Dad. Feel better. The line went dead. No, I love you. No genuine concern. Just relief that his father might be dying. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and leaned against the taxi's worn leather seat. $43 million. That's what my life was worth to them. The apartment building's doorman greeted me with professional courtesy, but I barely heard his words. Everything felt distant, muffled, like experiencing life through thick glass. My penthouse elevator climbed silently toward the top floor, carrying me away from the world where sons didn't poison fathers and family meant something more than inheritance calculations. Inside my apartment, I locked the door with unusual care. 3 deadbolts I'd never used before tonight. The pill bottle came out of my pocket like evidence from a crime scene. Under my desk lamp, the orange liquid looked innocent enough. Vitamin C and attempted murder mixed in equal parts. I placed it carefully in my safe next to insurance papers and stock certificates. Evidence of betrayal worth more than any financial document I'd ever protected. The leather chair in my study embraced me like an old friend. This morning I'd sat here planning exotic travels and peaceful retirement. Tonight I was planning what? Justice maybe, or just survival? The phone rang again. This time I let it go to voicemail. Simon's voice filled the room. Dad, I'm really worried about you. Call me back, okay? Ada sends her love. Ada sends her love. The woman who had coached my son through attempted murder was sending her love. I poured myself 3 fingers of scotch and stood at the window overlooking Central Park. Somewhere down there, in a restaurant I'd never visit again as an innocent man, a decorative plant was slowly dying from the poison meant for me. Tomorrow I would need to find a private laboratory, someone discreet who could analyze the sample and provide official documentation. Then perhaps a lawyer, someone who understood inheritance law and how to protect assets from murderous heirs. But tonight I would simply sit with the knowledge that my family had tried to kill me for money. The scotch burned, but not as much as the truth. Outside the city hummed with normal life, people having dinner, watching movies, calling relatives with genuine affection, a world where family bonds meant protection instead of danger. My reflection in the window looked older somehow. The man who'd celebrated business success a few hours ago had died at that restaurant table. Someone harder had taken his place, someone who knew that blood meant nothing when $43 million was involved. The next morning brought clarity that sleep had refused to provide. I dressed in my best suit, the navy one I wore for important business meetings, and made 2 phone calls. The first was to Morrison Analytics, a discreet laboratory that handled sensitive testing for Manhattan's elite. The second was to Harold Steinberg, the estate attorney who'd structured my business assets for decades. I need both services today, I told my assistant. Priority appointments. Morrison Analytics occupied the 15th floor of a medical building on the Upper East Side. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison herself handled my consultation, understanding immediately that discretion was paramount. The sample will undergo complete toxicological analysis, she explained, her voice professional and reassuring. Gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, the full spectrum. I handed her the pill bottle that had saved my life. How long for results? 24 hours for preliminary findings, 48 for complete documentation suitable for legal proceedings. Legal proceedings? The words felt heavy with implication. This is completely confidential. Absolutely, Mr. Hicks. Attorney-client privilege extends to forensic consultants when legal action is anticipated. The next day, I returned to collect results that would change everything forever. The results are definitive, Mr. Hicks. Potassium cyanide in lethal dosage. Dr. Morrison's report contained graphs, chemical formulas, and expert analysis that painted a clear picture. My son had tried to murder me with one of the most deadly poisons known to science. Will this document be admissible in court? Absolutely. This is official expert analysis complete with chain of custody documentation. I studied the report's technical details. Concentration levels that would have killed me within minutes. Purity suggesting professional-grade procurement. Evidence of premeditation beyond any reasonable doubt. Harold Steinberg's law office occupied a corner suite in Midtown, walls lined with legal texts and family photographs that now seemed like mockeries of trust. I need to modify my will immediately, I announced without preamble. Harold had managed my legal affairs for 15 years. He understood urgency when he heard it. What specific changes? Remove Simon and Ita as beneficiaries. Everything goes to charity instead. His eyebrows raised slightly, but he asked no questions. Professional discretion was why wealthy families trusted him with their most sensitive matters. The Foundation for Medical Research, I decided they understand the value of life. New documents were prepared, notarized, and filed within hours. Simon and Ita would inherit nothing except the knowledge that their greed had cost them everything. That evening, I called the Bella Vista restaurant. Yepe, this is Irving Hicks. I'd like to make a reservation for tomorrow night. The same table as Tuesday, if possible. Of course, Mr. Hicks. 8-0. Perfect. And Josep, could you ensure that plant near our table remains exactly as it is, the one I watered during my visit? A pause, then understanding in his voice. Certainly, sir, we'll leave everything undisturbed. The plant would be dead by tomorrow night. Brown and withered proof of cyanide's lethality. Visual evidence that even Simon couldn't deny. I spent that evening preparing a letter, each word chosen with the precision that had built my company. Simple, direct, devastating. Simon and Ita, I know about the cyanide. Mike Riley witnessed your poisoning attempt. The toxicology report confirms attempted murder. My will has been changed. You are no longer my heirs. The $43 million will benefit medical research instead of funding your comfortable lives. You chose greed over family. Now you have neither. Irving. The envelope sealed with wax. old-fashioned finality that matched the gravity of its contents. Tomorrow night I would return to the scene of their crime for the final act of this family drama, not as a victim, but as a judge delivering sentence. Justice served at the same table where betrayal had been attempted. The irony felt appropriate. The Bella Vista restaurant felt different on Thursday evening, charged with the electricity of approaching justice. I arrived precisely at 8:00, the sealed envelope tucked inside my jacket like a weapon. Jeppe himself escorted me to our familiar table on the terrace, the same table where my son had tried to murder me 3 nights earlier. "Your guests haven't arrived yet, Mr. Hicks. They will." I positioned myself facing the entrance, the envelope placed deliberately beside my water glass. The decorative plant nearby had turned brown and brittle, its leaves curled and lifeless from Tuesday's poisoned irrigation. Perfect evidence. Simon and Ida arrived 10 minutes later, their faces carrying the subtle satisfaction of people who believed they'd gotten away with murder. Simon wore a black suit that seemed premature morning attire.
"Dad, you look well."
Surprise flickered across his features. "Better than expected, you mean?" They settled into their chairs, Ida smoothing her dress with hands that had helped plan my death. The evening breeze carried the scent of dying flowers and betrayed trust. "How are you feeling?" Ida's voice dripped false concern. "Simon was so worried about your sudden illness." I gestured toward the withered plant. "Interesting what poison can do to living things, isn't it?" Both pairs of eyes followed my gesture, landing on the brown, twisted remains of what had been healthy greenery 3 days ago. Simon's face drained of color. "That plant received a special watering Tuesday night," I continued conversationally. "Orange juice mixed with potassium cyanide. Same mixture you intended for me." Ida gripped her napkin, knuckles white against the starched linen. I lifted the envelope, holding it like a judicial document. "This contains everything you need to know about your failed attempt." Simon's hands trembled as he accepted the envelope. His fingers fumbled with the wax seal, finally tearing it open with desperate urgency. I watched his face as he read, witnessed the exact moment hope died and reality crashed down. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly like a fish drowning in air. "What is this?" His voice cracked on the question. Ida leaned over, reading the letter that destroyed their future in clinical, business-like language. "Dad, wait." This was all Ida. I didn't want to stop. My voice cut through his desperate lies like a blade. "Mike Riley saw you pour the cyanide. The toxicology report confirms attempted murder. You chose money over family." I stood looking down at the son who had tried to kill me and the woman who had orchestrated it. "You wanted my $43 million. Medical research will benefit from it instead. You wanted me dead. You're dead to me instead." Simon rose halfway from his chair, panic making his movements clumsy. "Please, Dad, I can explain." "Goodbye, Simon. Forever." I walked away from the table without looking back, leaving them with their destroyed dreams and the evidence of their crimes. Behind me I heard Simon's voice rise in desperate pleading, but the words meant nothing now. Josep appeared at the restaurant's entrance as I approached. "Will you be returning, Mr. Hicks?" "No, my business here is finished." The evening air felt cleaner as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Central Park stretched ahead, full of honest shadows and straightforward darkness. No hidden poison, no murderous relatives, no betrayal disguised as love. Just the beginning of a life where family meant nothing and justice meant everything. My phone would ring tonight, probably many times. Simon and Ida would beg, threaten, promise anything to change what had already been decided. I would let it ring. 43 million had bought me more than retirement. It had bought me the truth about who my son really was, and the freedom to live without pretending that blood was thicker than cyanide. The city lights twinkled like scattered diamonds as I walked home alone, but no longer vulnerable. Justice, it turned out, tasted better than revenge. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.